Hey, okay, a little quick deal here. And this will wrap up the session, this short little lecture I want to introduce you to. What is comparative cognition? And honestly, this is going to be brief. It's a study of information processing across a variety of species. Now, okay, so why do we study things other than humans when we're studying behavior? We have to make these comparisons. And that helps us to understand why we behave the way we behave. Excuse me. Sorry about that. Didn't get a lot of sleep last night. Super Bowl. Um, so, comparative cognition. Uh, we do this with things like over a variety of things, including animals and humans, which is our main concern here. And what are we looking at? Memory, categorization, decision making, problem solving, and things like language and deception, which are more complex. Think about deception. I won't go into it, but what do you have to do to be deceptive? You got to have a very unique understanding of how to manipulate thinking. So, uh, we often use comparative to refer to the comparing of activities and abilities across species, and then make the determination as to whether they're similar or different. Sometimes it's called cognitive behaviorism or animal cognition, even. Uh, but really, the crux of it is that we're concerned with the comparison part of it. We need to understand abilities. Where did they come from? Are they natural? Are they taught, etc. For us or animals for that matter? And then we compare us to them and them to us, whatever that species is. There are four questions developed by a researcher called Tenbergen, his last name, 1963. And this became the benchmark for how this is done. Four questions or four levels of analysis. Comparative psychology's uh, based on this, I guess is a good way to put it. So, two of the questions, the first two deal with the ultimate cause of a trait and the reasons why that became to be in a species. And the last two deal with the proximate cause of the trait, a more immediate cause for the expression of what that trait is. Near or immediate, that's what proximate is. You call that from the last lecture. By the way, speaking of, let me make a correction here. In the syllabus, it says chapter 13 and 14. Well, that's not going to happen. And the biggest reason is because there's not a chapter 14. I don't know where I came up with that, but this is it. There's no chapter 14. This is chapter 13. So, four questions, and basically refer back to taste aversion as your sample. So that'll make this easier to understand. So, ultimate cause. Let's run over these real quickly. That relates to the evolution of a trait within a species. What purpose does the trait serve, and in what capacity? Survival or reproduction. So the text uses a one trial aversion learning uh, as how that allows an organism to avoid poisonous food. So that would lead to an enhanced rate of survival, right? Pretty simple. How the second question under ultimate cause. How is this trait distributed across the species? Taste diversion is learned pretty quickly in most species. Uh, Whatever their diet dictates, they're going to know to stay away from certain things and eat other things. I can't think of a food that you and I would avoid because it's, well, I hope you get the point. Persimmon. I don't know if you've ever eaten a persimmon and gotten hold of one that wasn't ripe. Your mouth turns wrong side out, they used to say. So learned over time, over for a reason that is related to distribution. How widespread is it? And then you have proximate cause. Uh, so we have, what purpose does a trait serve for survival or reproduction under ultimate, and we how is it distributed across a species? As humans, we can verbally share. As an animal, not so necessarily. And then the proximate cause. What biological or environmental events led to the expression of the trait in an individual? Biological level, taste aversion that uh, depends on having a functioning part of your brain, amygdala, if you want to know what it is. On an environmental level, that would be a biological level. Environmental level, uh, that you eat the food and it's followed by nausea or illness. So again, basic questions. And then how the second question there and the last question is, how does the trait emerge or change during an individual development? Well, um, taste aversion develops about the time of nursing or taking a bottle of whatever, depending on how you receive your nutrition. And then it is carried over through development. Uh, and you can probably think of certain foods that you ate when well, you wouldn't eat when you were younger that now you eat maybe all the time. Collard greens, I don't know, pick one. Grits, if you're up north, you don't even know what they are back in the day. Um, so whatever it is that prompts that, uh, and again, that would be uh, more of a uh, more of a learned than an unlearned behavior. There are techniques that behaviorists use in an effort to study animal behavior, and we can take those and transpose them onto humans. So we have to learn what's possible cognitively for an animal and a human, and then you have to that leads us to being able to uncover the abilities that animals and people uh, have come about to help cope with the world. This is an adaptation thing. I know this sounds a little complicated, but what I just said basically deals in adaptation. I keep knocking my computer off my lap. I'm sorry. So we have to understand that comparative researchers uh, function because of that adaptation business in mind, and because of uh, operant conditioning categories that Thorndike's um, ideas come into play. They help explain this. So the concerns are about anthropomorphism, attributing human characteristics to animals, uh, which is a major malfunction on the part of researchers. You have to, they use the word operationalize. You have to operationalize variables so you can easily replicate those, which means that you have to take into account the bias that may come into play. So I don't want to introduce a bias related to what could be attributed to uh, my assumption, or my assumption that an animal will behave like a human being. There's another way of putting that, and I can't think of it. So I think you get the gist of it. We're dealing with four ways to look at this comparative business. And that's all this is, comparative cognition. What do you understand that I don't understand, and you happen to be a chimpanzee and I happen to be a human being, and vice versa. Makes sense? Hope it does. Final lecture. Hope you enjoyed the session.